First of all, welcome to Tanzania and congratulations for having peaceful and harmonious general election in Kenya. My first question, since you arrived in Tanzania, we just want to know what have you learned and what's your take about bilateral relations between Kenya and Tanzania.
Thank you very much. Let me first of all begin by once again and officially welcoming you to Kenya House and asking you to feel at home. This is your home as well. Kenya and Tanzania have had long-standing relations, very warm, very cordial, for many years and for many generations. One, we are neighbors. Two, we are brothers, because along our borders we have relations, blood relations between various families that live across our long borders. So if I may say, you may not be able to, you can choose a friend, but as a country, you have no choice about your neighbor because God has placed you there. But we are also fortunate that our neighbor is also our friend, and also we share brotherly ties. So I feel quite at home, and I also want to thank you, first of all, the people of Tanzania for having taken a good interest, a keen interest in our elections, because what happens to Kenya as a bordering nation also has an impact in the neighbors and in the region. We have continued to receive a lot of warm messages of congratulatory messages from the government and the people of Tanzania, right from Her Excellency President Samia Suluhu Hassan. During the time of election and even afterwards, she has congratulated Kenya and expressed goodwill for the people and the government of Kenya, and also to the president-elect. Elections go like that. We have had and we continue to build on strong democratic processes. And we are happy and we are glad that this democratic process that we have continued to build on has yielded for us a leader that the Kenyan people have decided to lead them, as is their responsibility. Our constitution gives the sovereign power to the people, and the people have a civic duty then to elect the leaders of their choice, beginning with the president all the way to their ward representatives. So they exercise that right. We had peaceful elections, as you may have all seen. We had a peaceful campaign period. Everybody was free to sell their policies and manifesto to the people of Kenya freely. And the people of Kenya made a determination on the 9th of August to elect the leader of their choice. And that leader now is His Excellency Dr. William Ruto, the President-elect of the Republic of Kenya, as was pronounced by the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, and also confirmed by the Supreme Court of Kenya. So we are happy that that process has gone well, and now we await the swearing-in ceremony on the 13th September. To go to your second question, is that from the time I arrived here, I was very warmly received by the people of Tanzania. The warmth, the legendary warmth that we have had about, I was able to feel it, to see it, and feel it and experience firsthand myself and my family. I have always desired, to come to Tanzania. I have visited different parts of Tanzania, maybe up to Arusha, but I had never been to Dar es Salaam. So this time I came and I was very warmly received. I'm glad to be here, myself and my family. And also it speaks to the warm and relations that we also have as a country, as neighbors. Of course, you are well aware that we share a lot of cross-cutting socio-economic ties and cultural ties as well. And that makes me feel much at home. And on another level, on the official level, I was also very fortunate. Within 2 weeks of my arrival, Her Excellency the President received me at State House Dodoma and was gracious enough to receive my letters of credence to accrediting me to the United Republic of Tanzania. That also, of course, speaks to the relations, and the cordial ties that the government of Tanzania, of United Republic of Tanzania, is keen to continue strengthening with the Republic of Kenya. So my experience so far has been good, and I look forward to much more engagement, to much more prosperity, to much more strengthening, widening, and deepening of ties during my tenure here as an ambassador.
Thank you. As I've said, our two countries have it's historical. We have an historical relation in terms of cultural, diplomatic, and political. And we understand that the presidents of both sides have for decades cherished this relationship in terms of socio-economic, politics, and cultural, as we have said. If you're to rate the outgoing President Kenyatta on building this relationship, what can you say of him on that aspect?
Thank you. You've rightfully said that Kenya and the United Republic of Tanzania enjoy relations that go back many generations and many years. Not just even at our independence, during the time of our founding president, Mwalimu Julius Nyerere and Mzee Jomo Kenyatta. Even before that, the colonial times, because we happen to have been under the same British rule. So our relations and ties go back many generations. We have continued to build on that with our countries becoming independent, and the leaders agreeing to have the East African community, the anchor states then being Kenya, the United Republic of Tanzania, and the Republic of Uganda. Now that has continued. Quite recently now, during the administration of President Uhuru Kenyatta, President Uhuru Kenyatta has been fortunate to work with 3 presidents from the United Republic of Tanzania. He came into office in 2013 during the time of His Excellency President Jakaya Mrisho Kikwete, the 4th President of the United Republic of Tanzania. They worked together very well, built open ties. I remember they enhanced tourism and had very fruitful engagements. After that came the 5th President of the United Republic of Tanzania, the late John Pombe Magufuli, and again they continue to build on those relations. You may remember that President Kenyatta at one point, President Magufuli came to Kenya and at one point visited our former First Lady Mama Ngina Kenyatta, the mother to President Uhuru Kenyatta, and President Kenyatta as well, when he came to the United Republic of Tanzania and learned about the mother of the late president being unwell. He went all the way to Chato to visit with the mother of President Magufuli. That shows also a keenness of building of relations, both officially and personal relations. Of course, President Magufuli visited Kenya and President Kenyatta visited Tanzania, and during those exchanges, they encouraged us to work together as the same people, one building bilateral relations between Republic of Kenya and the United Republic of Tanzania, and also within the framework of East Africa. That they did, opening up trade, building people-to-people relations, and it became only natural that upon the coming into office of President Samia Suluhu Hassan, that these relations have continued to be enhanced. President Samia Suluhu Hassan paid the first state visit during her tenure in office to Kenya in May of 2021. Many things were discussed during this time, and key among them is the continue to build relations, continue to work together, and opening up trade and investment opportunities for the mutual benefit of our two people. They discussed areas of trade and investment. They discussed the areas of tourism. They discussed in areas of cooperation, in areas of energy, and even health. You know, that time was during the time when all of us were still grappling with the very difficult circumstances of COVID-19. And we managed to cooperate in many of these areas. And we are glad that our two countries and even the region of East Africa was not badly devastated by the pandemic. Part of it also is because of the cooperation that we were able to put in place. So President Kenyatta has been front and center of enhancing relations between Kenya and Tanzania. He has had his foot forward in ensuring that we expand trade. During those visits of President Samia to Kenya in May 2021 and the follow-up visit or reciprocal visit by His Excellency President Uhuru Kenyatta in December of 2021, a lot of things were discussed and agreed. One of them is that we needed to set up a permanent implementation committee so that the issues that we normally have of trade and challenges that are there can be addressed in a continuous basis. Following that and following their directives, out of about 68 or so non-tariff barriers have increasingly been removed. Up to now, I think about 56 of them have been removed, and we are only remaining with about 14. Of course, non-tariff barriers make it difficult for people to do trade. You know, there are tariff barriers where you say maybe you're charging tax on this or excise duty on this, but non-tariff barrier are just hurdles that make it very difficult for trade to go on. During that visit and during this engagement with our two presidents, 56 of them have been eliminated. That is a record anywhere you look at any bilateral relation or engagement. We are remaining with about 14. Of course, these are new issues that sometimes keep on emerging, but we are hopeful that in the next session that will be there between our joint technical committee, that will be able to remove more of these barriers and we'll see enhanced trade. And on that point, let me just add, because of that alone, trade between Kenya and Tanzania has grown tremendously by about 40%. 2021, the export from Tanzania to Kenya was about, in terms of Tanzanian shillings, almost 600 billion to Kenya. From Kenya to Tanzania. Yeah, about 600 billion. The increase of trade now pushed that to almost around 800 billion T-shillings. All right, that will be roughly about 41 billion Kenyan shillings. When you look at the trade between now Tanzania, export from Tanzania now to Kenya, which were roughly about maybe 45, let's say 450 billion T-shillings. Now those ones increased to a record about 960 billion T-shillings. And so the balance of trade now is more in favor of the United Republic of Tanzania, with a surplus of about Kenya shillings approximately 7.8, Tanzanian shillings approximately 150 billion T-shillings, that now Tanzania is able to export to Kenya more than Kenya is exporting to Tanzania, just because of that elimination of barrier of trade. So I can say confidently that these engagements between President Samia Suluhu Hassan and President Uhuru Kenyatta have pushed us very much forward in terms of trade and investments between the two countries.
Kenyans have casted polls. They just concluded a hotly contested general election, and they've decided that William Ruto is their president. how do you speak of William Ruto?
Yeah, we just come from a very, very robust process of electioneering, the process of campaigning and the general elections. As is mandated by our constitution that every 5 years we must go to a general election and elect new leaders to push us forward. And in that process, the people of Kenya have made a resounding decision to elect the President-elect, His Excellency Dr. William Ruto, as a new President of Kenya, to push us forward for the next 5 years until the next general elections, and then when the Kenyan people again will make another determination. I will start by saying that His Excellency Dr. William Ruto is not a stranger in this leadership. He is currently the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya, serving together and under President Uhuru Kenyatta. So now he is just been promoted to a higher level now as president. So besides being president-elect, he still continues to be the deputy president until the day of the swearing in, because that is how our constitution is, that both the presidency ceases after the new president is sworn in and the new deputy president. So he will continue to serve. So he's a leader who has been there. He's participated in some of the things that you're seeing being done by the president. He's been a member, of course, by virtue of his office of the cabinet, and he's also the principal assistant of the president. He is a dynamic leader. He has a long history of leadership, serving as a minister in the Ministry of Agriculture, and serving again as a minister in the Ministry of Higher Education. So he's a person with tremendous experience in leadership. And so we expect during his term that he will be able to move our country forward, number one. In terms of the policies that he has already outlined it in his manifesto that is called the plan, about uplifting the people of Kenya from the economically, building and uplifting them socio-economically, let's say, because in terms of economic activities and even other social factors like universal health, education, and many other areas that he has targeted to do. So I can speak about, speaking about a man who has a plan to be able to work to improve the livelihood of the people of Kenya. Secondly, President William Ruto President-elect Dr. William Ruto has also pronounced himself and says that he will continue to build on the policies on what President Kenyatta has done. So we expect continuity in some of the key areas, including bilateral relations, regional relations, and even international relations, because many of these things are defined and actually anchored in a framework that is very clear about what our foreign policy is. So even in the bilateral relations with the countries like United Republic of Tanzania, we actually expect to have more enhanced relations as they build on what has been done. So we expect somebody a leader coming on board with a lot of energy, with a lot of experience, with a lot of focus, with a lot of zeal and determination to push the country forward. And this is something that we know, if we benefit as a country in terms of economic empowerment, economic development, socio-economic improvement, that also means improvement and development for our region.
What do you think should be the areas of improvement, maybe the areas of more focus for President Ruto as our two countries strive to strengthen the bilateral relationship?
I think one of the areas that is very clear that the President-elect would be pursuing is, first of all, peace and stability. Because without peace, again, you can't have development. So that we have both peace within our nation and even peace between our nations, across the border, across interactions, that we have peace and security. That is one of the areas that I know clearly he will want to cooperate with the government of United Republic of Tanzania to enhance peace, to be able to engage together to fight the vices that bedevil both countries, transnational crime like drug trafficking, human trafficking in some cases, and terrorism that affect us. That is an area of focus, because in our foreign policy, peace and security is one of the key pillars. And I know that the president-elect, when he comes to office, he will focus on those things as defined by our foreign policy. And just to speak about our foreign policy, our written foreign policy came into effect in 2014. We had foreign policy, but the written foreign policy for the first time came into effect 2014, which is during their time of administration when President Uhuru and Dr. William Ruto were in office. So it's something that he is alive to. It's a process that he is part to, and something that he will be pursuing. So I see him pursuing that. I also see him pursuing, and he is very passionate about economic development and integration. The issues of trade and investment between our two countries. That is an area that I expect that he will put a lot more focus, because when we do trade, when we open up our countries to do business and trade, you not only enhance relations, but you also empower our two people. So that is an area that I will see him putting his best foot forward, to ensure that we enhance that area of cooperation bilaterally between the Republic of Kenya and, of course, the United Republic of Tanzania. We have made steps, like I've just mentioned. We have made considerable steps, but still there are still hurdles that we keep experiencing between our people. When you talk to our business community from both sides of the country, they express certain challenges that they have. And I probably will refer to what President Samia Suluhu said when she was in Kenya sometime, that these are not fundamental problems or government policy. It is just sometimes perspective or misconception of the officials of government who make it difficult for people to engage in trade. So I foresee President William Ruto, as he will be then, focusing a lot in eliminating all these barriers to trade, and we shall have and enhancing free movement of people, of goods and of services between our two countries.
It's out of question that Kenya is a stronghold of trade in the East African region. What do you think President Ruto should do to revitalize the East African community?
Kenya has been able to do, to build on structures of economic development, of trade, both in the region and internationally. I wouldn't say, we all can be strongholds, in Africa and within the region of East Africa, because we see it not as one winning versus the other. We see it as a situation where people can complement one another. Countries can complement one another. Tanzania being strong does not make Kenya weaker. Kenya being strong does not make Tanzania weaker. And within the region of East Africa, the more our strength, the better it is for us. The focus I see that President William Ruto will come with, because he has already, of course, indicated that, first of all, when you strengthen and empower and bring development to your country, and then to your region, and then you can be able then to move outside. You start with your country, strengthen it, put structures, put an environment, a viable or a conducive environment for people to progress and do business. Then now you can go into the region and encourage the same. And you will maybe also be able to realize that Kenya is very invested in there being peace and stability in the region, the East African region. If you look at some of the processes that Kenya has been involved in as a government, the peace process in South Sudan, right from before the comprehensive peace agreement was signed in 2005 in Nairobi, and even now, the revitalized peace process that is going on in South Sudan, Kenya is involved. In Somalia, we have been involved and we continue to be involved. We have our military there under the umbrella of AMISOM and the new force that is coming in. I think that is a transitional mission as they begin to get stability. So we are interested in the stability. Quite recently, Kenya has been involved in what we call the Nairobi process of bringing peace to the Democratic Republic of Congo, and which now has become a process of East African community. It may have started in Nairobi as a Nairobi process, but now it has become. And the leaders of East African community were gracious enough to appoint His Excellency Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta as the facilitator of that process, even after his retirement. President William Samoei Ruto, as he comes into office, President-elect William Samoei Ruto, as he comes into office, I believe that will be his focus as well, to ensure that there is peace and stability, because there can be no development if you don't have peace. You can't also have trade with your neighbors if they are also not stable, because their focus will be in their security and not in trade. So it is in the interest of the nation of Kenya, and I believe this will be championed by His Excellency the President-elect when he comes into office, because that is one of the pillars. And let me just also say, and I've maybe alluded to our foreign policy, which is our guiding pillar, our guiding framework for doing all these things. One of the key pillars is peace and security. So first of all, you have peace and stability in your country and then in your region. Otherwise, then you cannot be able to achieve economic diplomacy. So I see him encouraging deepening of relations in the East African community, strengthening of relations, implementation of the common market protocol so that we can be able to do business with each other freely and easily, and then also maybe the expansion, the more expansion of the East African community so that we have bigger markets. Because as you are well aware now, we are moving into intra-African trade, and already we have signed the agreement, and there is we are the initial phase of the continental free trade. And both Kenya and Tanzania are in the pilot phase of 6 countries to do that. So it is in our interest that we embrace common markets protocol, open doors for trade to thrive within our East African community, with the new member now included, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and hopefully in the near future, the Republic of Somalia, so that we can be able to, 1, stabilize our region, and 2, encourage trade between the 2 nations and people-to-people relations.
You have spoken about the growing trade relationship between Kenya and Tanzania. More Kenyan companies are doing business with Tanzania, and as well as their counterpart Tanzanians are doing business with the Kenyans. What do you think could be the untapped potentials on these areas of trade?
There are many areas. We're already doing business, and as you have put it rightly, that we have a number of Kenyans here, in what we would refer to as a foreign direct investment into the country of Tanzania. And sometimes people think foreign direct investment can only come from outside the continent, or can only come from Europe. It can even be among ourselves. We also have a number of countries from Tanzanian companies in Kenya also invested. And we may have many more Kenyan companies here, and which also is a positive aspect, because it also creates employment to the local population of Tanzanians. It brings in capital, it brings in investment, and creates employment, and which means that it also improves the welfare of the people. We have many more areas that have not completely been tapped and exploited to the full potential. Even in the very area of trade and investment. Tanzania is a big agricultural country. Tanzania has a lot of potential in the area of agriculture. This is one area that the two countries can be able to partner in, with investors coming, bringing in capital, and working with the local partners to be able to increase the yield. There is an area of blue economy that now is a big focus for us as a country, because there's a lot of untapped potential in the blue economy. We both face the Indian Ocean, which has abundance of resources, marine resources, fish of all types. What we are doing and what our statistics show is that what we are tapping or what we are using from the Indian Ocean or from our seas is just a small percentage of the potential that exists. The latest statistics that I was looking at show that we can be able to annually get benefits from our side of the coast and the marine economy through the blue economy. Marine resources through the blue economy, about $3 billion worth of resources annually. That is a huge potential that has not been tapped. And this is something that is an area that our counterparts from Tanzania also can join hands with us and tap it, even though also you have the marine resources. So this is an area that is there, one of the areas. Tanzania has been fortunate enough to have done a lot in the mining sector. Kenya is just beginning to get into the area of mining and mineral exploitation. We have not been able to do it as well as we have not been able to do it for the long period of time as the United Republic of Tanzania has. So this is again an area that the expertise that the Tanzanian people have gained from that area of mining, they can come and exploit, in the Kenyan side, as we try to map up the areas which have different kinds of minerals. United Republic of Tanzania also has had a lot of, because of that experience, they have been able to create a very good framework for their small miners, the artisanal, through I think the artisanal mining regulations that favors the small scale miners. These are things that we are still at the stages of developing. So they can be able to come on board, and people who have had the experience, the expertise in this, and invest. That is an open area for us to be able to collaborate together. Already we are doing a lot in the transport sector, and there still exist a lot of opportunities. As being one of the East African countries, Kenya right now has a policy that if you're a member of East African community, you can come to Kenya, you can purchase land. That is a policy that we have. You can purchase land just like a Kenyan, you can work just like a Kenyan, you can invest just like a Kenyan. So our Tanzanian brothers, when they come to Kenya to do this, they will be coming as just like Kenyans would do in terms of investment. It will be a plain playing ground that all of us can be able to do. So a lot of potential exists. Even in the tourism sector, I know we share a lot of commonalities in the tourism sector. Of course, we know about the wild beast migration, which is said to be the 8th wonder of the world, that is shared between Kenya and Tanzania. This is an area again, we can have investors in the tourism sector. We can have people either together or in collaboration building tourism facilities the other side of Masai Mara, across the Mara River, and on this side, or even getting into circuit tourism, where you have visitors coming to Tanzania, visiting Tanzania, or whether it's Zanzibar or wherever, and also doing other circuits in Kenya. These are areas that we can be able to collaborate that we have not done much. within. You know, you find that maybe each people doing it only in their country and not expanding to take advantage of the area. So those are some, just a few, just to name but a few. But there are many other areas that we can be able to collaborate in.
The just ended Kenyan election has been widely internationally described as credible, fair, and free. Do you buy the idea that Tanzania has a lot to learn from that election?
Yeah, we have, of course, heard about a different description about the elections that we just had recently. And we are glad to hear a lot of many positive things being said about our election, our general election, about the process that is transparent, that is credible, that is fair. And right from the time of campaign to the election process, the casting of the vote, the announcement, and even the judicial process that follows that we have a good mechanism for dispute resolution, that if any of the people dispute, you know, and this is not just the candidates, any of the people dispute the results, then it becomes, you have a mechanism to get your dispute addressed by the Supreme Court of Kenya, and whose verdict is final. And we just saw that in our recent electoral process, that when one of the candidates and other people thought that they had a dispute and challenge, it went to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court anonymously pronounced itself and said, upheld the victory of the president-elect and the announcement by the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission. It is not for Tanzania just to learn from us. Even Kenyans are learning from our own processes. This is an improvement from the processes that we have had before. If you will recall, we had the last election, 2017, the election of President Kenyatta was overturned by the Supreme Court for what was termed then as irregularities and illegalities in the process. Because initially, the defendant in that particular case, who was President Uhuru Kenyatta and his team, said, look at the votes, count the votes, focus on the numbers. But then the Supreme Court said, we will not just focus on the number, we will focus also on the processes. And the election was overturned. This was the first time it was happening in Africa for an incumbent to have an election overturned. And I think the third time is happening in the entire world. It was a first for us as well, that this election was. But now we learned again from that it is possible even for an incumbent to have the election overturned. A sitting president can have an election overturned, which means that our institutions then are independent. And when you have independent institutions, then it's a strength for the country because you're able to move forward. Now, learning from that, the process became more open this time. And there was access by anybody, not just the citizen. Even you here, you wanted to access the portal, you know the link, you access the portal and you see the results as they are coming in. So this is a learning process for us. And we have seen it's a good learning process because the verdict of the court has indicated that now, this time round, the electoral body has conducted a very good, transparent election. The mistakes or irregularities that were there or illegalities now have not been there. They have managed to address that issue. So it's a learning process for us as a country. And we have seen when you learn, when you have more transparency, when you have more openness, then there is more peace even among the people contesting. So it's a learning process for us. So as we learn, we have a lot to learn from each other, even Kenya and Tanzania. Our areas of strength, the Tanzanian area of strength, is a process that you can learn from each other, because even for us to have gotten to this level, we have learned also from other countries. We have seen, we benchmark with other countries, we see the processes that they are doing in other countries. So we can, it's a process of continuous learning. And that is the essence of national building. National building is about continually improving yourself, learning and improving yourself. And general election is a key part of national building, because that's when you elect your leaders who are pushing you forward. So Kenyans are learning, and many other countries can learn from the process, and we can continue to learn from their processes as well, in order to strengthen our institution, to strengthen our systems, and also improve our processes.
Mateso, nimepigwa faini sababu ya bima kuisha. Hukunikumbusha, lazima unirudishie hii faini.
Pole, ila nilikukumbusha kwa SMS. Itakuwa network yako mbovu. Unanilaumu bure.
Wewe Mateso, kitambi chako akiishiwi visingizio. Uzembe wako isiwe kero kwangu. Nahitaji bima sasa hivi.
Jioni hii niko mbali. Inaweza kuwa ngumu. Au tufanye kesho.
Mama, tusimsubiri atatuchelewesha. Acha nikununulie bima sasa hivi kwenye WhatsApp tuondoke.
Kwenye WhatsApp hii?
Yes. Si unaela kwenye simu?
Ndio, za kutosha. Inaniambia niweke namba ya siri. Salome, una uhakika niendelee?
Endelea.
Tumia bima pap kwa kupiga *150*51 au kwa WhatsApp 0764166066 ujipatie bima.
Kweli penye nia kuna njia. Nimeipata bima inasomeka halali. Kwa ujanja huu, isijekaa umechukua pesa zangu.
Mama jamani, kuna shida mwanao kufurahia raha yako kidogo?
Bima pap. Urahisi wa maisha.